Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I saved $10,000 in just 6 months while making less than insert income. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, step by step. Whether you're living paycheck to paycheck, working part-time as a student, or just trying to make ends meet on a tight budget, this video is for you. Cue a fast-paced montage. Shots of me meal prepping, tracking my expenses in a budgeting app, doing side gigs, skipping coffee runs, hitting transfer on my savings account. Every little win, every dollar counted. Let me introduce myself. I'm your name. And I started this journey because I was tired of feeling like I'd never get ahead financially. I wasn't making a high salary. In fact, I was earning less than insert income a year. But I knew if I could get really intentional with my money, I could make something happen. And that's exactly what I did. In this video, I'm breaking down everything I learned, the mindset shift I had to make, the practical strategies that actually worked, the habits I built that changed the game, and the tools I used along the way. No fluff, just real talk and proven tactics that helped me stack up $10,000 without a high-paying job. If you're someone who's been feeling stuck, like saving is impossible because you don't make enough, this is the video for you. I was there. I get it. But trust me, it's possible. You don't need 6 figures. You need focus, discipline, and a plan. Let's get into it. When it comes to saving money, especially on a low income, mindset is everything. Before I ever saved a single dollar, I had to get real with myself. I realized that my relationship with money needed to change. It wasn't just about finding a better budgeting app or cutting back on coffee. It started with how I thought about money. Most of us grow up surrounded by a consumer mindset. We're taught to spend, not just on what we need, but on what we want, right now. Advertisements are everywhere. Social media makes it feel normal to buy constantly. Clothes, tech, takeout, subscriptions, even stuff we don't really care about, just to feel like we're keeping up. That mindset had me stuck for years. I'd get paid, and within a few days my account was back to almost zero. It didn't matter how much I earned. It was how I used it. The shift for me happened when I started seeing money as a tool, not just for spending, but for building freedom. Instead of thinking, I deserve this treat right now, I started asking, will this expense help me get closer to the life I want? That question alone started changing everything, and that leads to the next part, my why. You have to have a strong reason to stay motivated, especially when the process gets hard, and it will get hard. My why was simple. I wanted an emergency fund. I didn't want to live in fear of a flat tire, a medical bill, or a job loss. I wanted peace of mind. Then it evolved into more. I wanted to be debt-free. I wanted to invest and build wealth. I didn't want to rely on anyone else for my future. That deep-rooted reason kept me going. But here's the truth. No one likes to hear. Saving money requires discipline. And discipline means telling yourself no when everything around you is screaming yes. It means skipping a night out, or not upgrading your phone, or meal prepping when you'd rather order Uber Eats. It's uncomfortable, but that discomfort, that's where growth lives. I started practicing delayed gratification. Instead of trying to get everything instantly, I trained myself to wait. And the wild thing is, the more I waited, the less I needed those things. I felt more in control. I wasn't just reacting to life anymore. I was making intentional choices. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. You're not failing because you messed up one week. You fail when you quit altogether. So if you take anything from this part of the video, let it be this. Saving money is more about mindset than math. You don't need to be a financial genius. You need to believe it's possible and be willing to do the hard, boring things over and over again. That's the real flex. Once my mindset was locked in, the next thing I had to do was create a real plan. Not just a vague idea like save more money. I needed something specific, measurable, and realistic for where I was at financially. That's what took the goal from overwhelming to actually doable. So the first thing I did was reverse engineer my target. I knew I wanted to save $10,000 in 6 months. That meant I needed to save about $1,667 every single month. Sounds like a lot, right? Especially when you're not making a ton. But breaking it down made it feel more manageable. That's about $417 a week. And even smaller, about $60 a day. Seeing it in chunks like that made the goal feel way less intimidating. Now, let me be clear. At first, that number looked impossible. I wasn't saving anything at the time, so the idea of putting away over $1,600 a month seemed like a fantasy. But instead of freaking out, I started asking myself the right questions. How much was I actually spending? Where was my money going every month? What could I cut, and what could I increase in terms of income? To answer those questions, I had to get super clear on my numbers. I opened up a simple spreadsheet. Nothing fancy. I listed every source of income I had, even if it was small or inconsistent. Then I listed every single expense. Rent, food, gas, subscriptions, even random little stuff like vending machine snacks. I wanted the truth, not just what I thought I was spending. That spreadsheet became my money command center. I updated it weekly. Some people like using apps like Mint, YNAB, or Rocket Money, and those are great too. But I liked the control and visibility of a spreadsheet. I could see how much I saved each week, how far I was from my monthly goal, and what areas needed adjusting. Another thing that helped, breaking the big goal into smaller milestones. Instead of constantly staring at the giant 10K target, I celebrated every $500 saved. Every time I hit another $1,000, I'd treat myself to something small, maybe a coffee out or a movie night at home. It kept me motivated. Saving money can feel like a grind, so having those checkpoints gave me little dopamine boosts to stay on track. I also gave every dollar a purpose. If I had extra income, maybe from a side hustle or overtime, it didn't just sit in my checking account. I'd already decided ahead of time. That money goes straight to savings. Having a clear system like that removed the temptation to spend. The biggest shift in this phase was learning to live by design, not by default. I wasn't letting my money just go wherever. Every dollar had a job, every week had a target. And because I had a clear plan, I could track my progress, make adjustments, and actually see the finish line getting closer. Without a plan, saving that much in 6 months would have stayed a dream. But once I broke it down, tracked it, and stayed consistent, it became real. At this point in the journey, I had the right mindset and a clear savings plan. Now it was time to really dig into the heart of it all. My budget. This is where the rubber meets the road. You can't outsave a bad budget, and trust me, I tried. Let me give you a transparent look at what I was working with. My monthly income at the time was around $2,800. Not a lot, especially when you consider rent, food, gas, and just life in general. But with that income, I still found a way to save over $1,600 a month by being brutally honest and intentional with my spending. I started by separating my expenses into 2 categories: fixed and variable. Fixed expenses are the things that don't change month to month: my rent, phone bill, and insurance. These were locked in, and unfortunately, I couldn't negotiate them much lower right away. My rent was $900, which was a huge chunk of my income, so I had to get creative elsewhere. Variable expenses were the flexible ones: groceries, gas, eating out, entertainment. This is where I had the most control, and this is where I made the biggest cuts. Now, let's talk about the budgeting method I used. I tried a few, but the one that worked best for me was a zero-based budget. That means every dollar I earned had a job, whether it was going to savings, bills, or spending. Nothing was left just in case in my checking account, because I knew how easily that could disappear. Each month, I'd list out my exact income at the top of my spreadsheet. Then I'd allocate that income down to the last dollar across all my categories. If I made $2,800, I'd make sure every cent was assigned: rent, groceries, gas, savings, everything. If something unexpected came up, I'd rebalance my budget on the fly, taking from a less important category. I knew I had to cut deeply, so here's where I made the biggest changes. Rent. I was paying $900 a month, which was painful on my income. I ended up moving in with a roommate to bring that down to $500. It wasn't ideal, but saving that extra $400 a month got me that much closer to my goal. Subscriptions. I canceled everything: Netflix, Spotify, even Amazon Prime. If it wasn't essential, it was gone. I figured I could live without streaming for 6 months if it meant hitting that 10K3. Dining out. This was my weakness. I used to spend $200, $300 a month on takeout and coffee runs. I cut that down to less than $50 by meal prepping on Sundays, making coffee at home, and sticking to a grocery list like my life depended on it. Transportation. I started biking more to save on gas. I grouped errands so I wasn't making random trips. I even skipped some social events that required a long drive if they weren't worth the cost. 5. Random spending. I stopped going to stores just to browse. I unsubscribed from promotional emails. I even used browser extensions like Honey or Rakuten to save when I had to buy something online. Let me show you a real example from my spreadsheet. Here's a snapshot from one of these months. Income: $2,800 rent, $500 utilities, internet, $120 groceries, $200 gas, $80 phone, $50 emergency buffer, $100 side hustle investment, $100 dining, entertainment, $50 total saved, $1,600. I even kept receipts to stay accountable. I had a grocery bill for $48 that lasted me almost a week. Rice, beans, chicken, frozen veggies, oats, eggs. Super basic, but it got the job done. The key was treating saving like a non-negotiable expense. I didn't save whatever was left over. I saved first, then made the rest work. And because I had a tight, zero-based budget and real tracking, I always knew exactly where my money was going. It wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. And when I saw that savings number grow each week, it made all the sacrifices feel totally worth it. This next part of the journey, cutting expenses, is where the magic really happened. Because no matter how good your mindset or your budget is, if your expenses are too high for your income, saving a significant amount just isn't going to happen. So I had to go all in on trimming the fat from every corner of my life. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The biggest and most impactful decision I made? Downsizing my housing situation. Rent was eating up over 30% of my income, which is a tough spot to be in when you're trying to save aggressively. I was in a one-bedroom paying $900 a month, which was just too much. I ended up moving in with a roommate. Honestly, not something. I wanted to do it first. I liked my privacy, my space, and just being independent. But the difference? Rent dropped to $500. That move alone saved me $2,400 over 6 months. That's nearly a quarter of my 10K goal just from one change. Next, I completely overhauled my food spending. I used to eat out constantly, grabbing lunch at work, coffee, on the way, Uber Eats for dinner when I was tired. All of it added up fast. So I made a firm decision. No more eating out unless it was part of a special occasion or already budgeted for. I learned how to meal prep, shop smart, and stretch my food. I'd spend around $40, $50 a week on groceries, cook simple meals like stir fries, pasta with veggies, and one-pot soups. I'd make big batches and freeze leftovers. Breakfast was often oats or eggs. Super cheap but filling. I saved hundreds this way. I also went through my subscriptions like a detective. I canceled everything I didn't truly need. Netflix? Gone. Spotify? Switched to the free version. Amazon Prime? Canceled. Gym membership? I found body weight workouts on YouTube and started jogging outside instead. These cuts may seem small individually, $10 here, $15 there, but over 6 months, They added up to a few $100. When it came to shopping, I stopped buying anything new unless I absolutely had to. I started buying secondhand and thrifting everything: clothes, kitchen items, even some furniture. Facebook Marketplace and thrift stores became my go-tos. I also used browser plugins like Honey and Rakuten to get cashback or find promo codes when shopping online. If I needed something like shoes or a jacket, I'd set a limit for myself, like $25 max, and wait for a sale or find it used. Another big money saver was using digital coupons and reward apps. I'd check grocery store apps before shopping and clip deals. I used cashback apps like Ebora for everyday purchases, and when I got enough points, I'd cash out for gift cards, which I sometimes used for groceries or small rewards without. Touching my main budget. One hack that helped a ton. I created a buy later list in my notes app. Anytime I felt the urge to buy something impulsively, like something cool I saw online, I'd add it to the list with the date. Most of the time, after a week or two, I didn't even want it anymore. That list helped me pause, think, and avoid a lot of wasteful spending. And finally, I leaned on community resources. I borrowed books from the library instead of buying them. I went to free local events for entertainment. I signed up for email lists that offered free birthday rewards or discounts. It sounds small, but those little things kept me from feeling deprived while still keeping my expenses low. Bottom line, I got scrappy. I questioned everything I was spending money on. If it didn't bring value or get me closer to my goal, I cut it. No excuses. And once I got into the habit of living lean, it stopped feeling like a sacrifice. It started feeling smart, empowering even. And honestly, I still live with a lot of those habits today. While cutting expenses was a huge part of reaching my 10K goal, it only got me halfway there. The other side of the equation? Increasing my income. And this part, even though it took more time and effort, made a massive difference. When you're working with a low income, there's only so much you can cut. But there's technically no ceiling on how much you can earn. That's where I started getting creative. The first thing I did was pick up a side hustle. I tried a few, but one of the easiest and most flexible for me was DoorDash. I could dash in the evenings or weekends, fit it around my full-time job, and earn an extra $100 to $200 a week depending on how many hours I put in. Some days I'd only make $30, but it all added up. Over the course of 6 months, even just averaging $100 a week brought in about $2,400, nearly a quarter of my savings goal. Beyond food delivery, I also looked at my skills. I had some basic graphic design and writing experience, so I dipped into freelancing. I set up a profile on Fiverr and Upwork, offering simple services like designing Instagram graphics or writing blog content. It didn't blow up overnight, but once I got a few reviews, I started getting consistent $50, $150 gigs. Some were one-offs, others became recurring clients. I reinvested some of that income to upgrade my portfolio, and the momentum picked up. Another thing I did, I monetized my hobbies. I've always enjoyed crafting and design, so I tested selling digital printables and templates on Etsy. It took some upfront work, designing, setting up the store, learning SEO, but eventually, a few listings started selling regularly. Not huge amounts, but again, even $50, $100 a month was a win. If you're someone with a talent, art, writing, tutoring, photography, social media, you can absolutely turn it into side income. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a step ahead of someone else and know how to package it. Now, I didn't stop at side hustles. I also looked inward at my 9-to-5 job. I tracked my wins, took on a few extra responsibilities, and asked for a raise after 3 months of consistently exceeding expectations. I didn't get a massive bump, but even an extra $100 per paycheck made a difference. I also picked up extra shifts when I could. At one point, I worked weekends for a couple of months just to accelerate my savings. It wasn't forever, just a season of hustle. let's break down how those income boosts actually added up. DoorDash, 100 to week x 24 weeks, hammered $2,400 freelancing gigs, averaged $150 month on a $900 Etsy digital sales, $50 month honor $300 raise extra shifts, averaged $100 month bound $600, that's $4,200 in extra income in 6 months, without a fancy degree, without quitting my job, and without sacrificing my health or burning out. The key was consistency. I treated those extra dollars like gold. I didn't upgrade my lifestyle. I didn't let the extra income give me an excuse to spend more. It all went straight into savings. Every $20 tip, every freelance payout, it got me one step closer to that 10K. If you're on a low income, increasing your earnings even just a little bit, $50 here, $100 there, can create massive momentum. Paired with smart budgeting and expense cutting, it's the triple threat that will move you faster than you think. Now that I had a solid budget, cut my expenses, and boosted my income, it was time to make sure I was actually saving that money, and not just letting it sit in my checking account where I'd be tempted to spend it. That's where smart saving techniques came in. These were the little strategies that helped me stay consistent, reduce temptation, and actually build that 10K over time. The first, and probably most important thing I did, was automate my savings. This changed everything for me. Instead of manually transferring money to my savings account and risking the chance I might forget or change my mind, I set up an automatic transfer every payday. As soon as my paycheck hit, $834 went straight into my savings account, half of my monthly savings goal. That meant I only had to think about it once. No willpower needed. I treated it like a non-negotiable bill. This brings me to the concept of paying yourself first. Most people do the opposite. They pay rent, bills, groceries, go out a little, and then try to save what's left over. But what's usually left? Not much. Paying yourself first flips the script. You save first, then live off the rest. It forces you to adapt your spending habits after your financial goals are taken care of, not before. Next, I opened a high-yield savings account, HISA. My old savings account was earning almost nothing in interest, like a few cents per month. But with a HISA, I started earning closer to 4% APY. That may not sound like a lot, but on 10K, that's around $400 a year in passive growth. It's free money. And the best part? These accounts are usually separate from your checking, which adds a layer of friction if you're tempted to dip into your savings. I couldn't just instantly transfer the money with one tap, which helped me not touch it. Another technique I used was doing no-spend challenges. I'd pick one weekend a month, or even a full week, and commit to spending $0 outside of essentials. No coffee runs, no quick stops at the store, no online shopping. Just pure discipline. It felt like a game, and it helped me realize how much I defaulted to spending out of boredom or convenience. Sometimes I'd even extend those no-spend streaks because it felt so good to be in control. Some months, I also experimented with the cash stuffing method, also known as the envelope system. I'd withdraw cash for specific spending categories: groceries, gas, fun money. Once the cash was gone, that was it. No swiping the debit card to go over budget. It added a level of physical accountability that was super effective, especially for variable expenses. Here's a breakdown of how these techniques looked in action. Automated savings, $834 auto-transferred every 2 weeks. HISA, earned passive interest and kept savings out of sight. No-spend challenges, saved an extra $50-100 month cash. Stuffing, helped me stick to tight grocery and gas budgets. These tools helped me save smarter, not just harder. They took the emotion out of saving and made it more about the system, which is way more sustainable in the long run. Because let's be real, motivation comes and goes. But when you have the right systems in place, you don't need to rely on willpower every day. The money takes care of itself. And the best part? Once I had these habits down, they became second. Nature. Even after I hit the 10K, I kept using most of these techniques because they just worked. Tracking progress was the glue that held everything together during this 6-month savings sprint. Without it, I would have felt lost and discouraged. Kind of like going to the gym without ever stepping on a scale or tracking your lifts. You might be making progress, but if you can't see it, it's easy to lose steam. That's why I committed to doing weekly and monthly check-ins with myself. Every Sunday I'd sit down, sometimes for just 10 minutes, and update my budget tracker. I'd look at how much I earned, what I spent, and most importantly, how much I had saved so far. It became a routine, almost like financial self-care. I even made a little ritual out of it: a cup of coffee, a playlist, and my spreadsheet open. I can't tell you how motivating it was to see the number grow week by week. Even if I only saved $100 one week, I'd add it to the tracker and watch the total inch closer to my $10,000 goal. That visual progress gave me energy to keep going. It made the sacrifices feel worth it. And on tough weeks, when I didn't save as much or felt burnt out, I could look back and remind myself how far I'd already come. As for tools, I kept it super simple. I tried a few apps like YNAB, You Need a Budget, and Mint, but ultimately, I stuck with a custom Google Sheets spreadsheet I built myself. It had a section for income expenses by category, weekly savings, total monthly savings tracker, progress bar toward 10,000. The progress bar was my favorite part. I literally made a bar that filled up in green every time I added more to my savings. Watching it go from 0% to 100% was so satisfying. You could definitely use a habit tracker app or even a physical wall chart for this if you're more visual. I also made sure to celebrate mini milestones. Every $1,000 saved felt like a big win. Because it was. When I hit $3,000, I let myself buy a $20 item I'd been wanting. When I hit $5,000, I treated myself to a nice dinner within budget, guilt-free. These small rewards kept me motivated, without derailing my progress. One fun trick I used: I broke my 10K goal into weekly targets, about $385 a week. Every time I hit a week's goal, I checked it off on a chart. Miss a week? No shame. Just readjust and try again. That flexibility, paired with consistent tracking, is what kept me on track without burning out. If you're trying to save aggressively, don't skip this part. Tracking progress is free, it takes minimal effort, and it keeps your goal top of mind. Seeing that number climb gave me confidence, momentum, and a sense of control over my finances like I'd never had before. Saving money is part math, part mindset, but it's also about momentum. And tracking progress? That's how you keep the momentum alive. Now let's talk about the part that nobody wants to deal with: setbacks. Because even with the best plan, the tightest budget, and all the motivation in the world, life is still going to throw you curveballs. And trust me, I had my fair share during this 6-month journey. One of the biggest was around month 3. I was just starting to build momentum, really getting into a groove, when my car broke down. It ended up being a $700 repair I absolutely couldn't avoid. And since my car was also how I did DoorDash, on the side, not fixing it would have meant losing income too. I remember staring at that bill, completely crushed, thinking, well, there goes everything I've worked for. But instead of giving up, I shifted into problem-solving mode. I had a small emergency fund I'd built up before starting the 10K challenge, and I dipped into that. Yes, it set me back, but it didn't break me. I also temporarily increased my hours on side hustles the next 2 weeks to help make up for it. That experience reminded me why I was saving in the first place. Emergency savings isn't just a concept, it's peace of mind when life gets messy. There were also smaller slip-ups along the way. Like the month I overspent on food by $100 because I was stressed and just didn't feel like cooking. Or the weekend I went out with friends and told myself I'd only spend $30, but ended up dropping $75. In the past, I might have let one bad week spiral into quitting altogether. But this time, I treated it like a learning opportunity, not a failure. I'd ask myself, what triggered that? Was I tired? Overwhelmed? Not planning ahead? Usually it was a mix of poor prep and emotional spending. So I adjusted, planned meals better, gave myself a bit more wiggle room for fun, and forgave myself quickly. That grace was key. If you're watching this and feeling discouraged because you've had a setback, let me just say, you're not alone. Saving aggressively isn't about perfection. It's about progress. The truth is, setbacks aren't detours. They're part of the journey. What matters most is how you respond to them. Don't let a single mistake undo months of hard work. Don't throw away the plan because life surprised you. Adjust. Recalibrate. Keep moving. You are allowed to mess up. You are allowed to slow down, but you are not allowed to give up on yourself. If anything, those tough moments strengthened my resolve. Because when I bounced back after each one, I proved to myself that I was capable of doing hard things. And that's the kind of confidence no setback can take away. So whether you're dealing with an unexpected expense, a bad spending week, or just burnout, take a breath. Revisit your why. Get back on track. And keep going. You've got this. So after 6 intense months of budgeting, hustling, and staying disciplined, I finally hit my goal. $10,000 saved. And I want to be super clear about something. Saving that money wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning. Let's start with what I actually did with the money, because I didn't just let it sit there collecting dust. The first thing I did was make sure I had a fully funded emergency fund. Before this, I had a small cushion, maybe $1,000 to cover car issues or unexpected bills. But now, I had the chance to really build a safety net, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And I can't tell you how freeing that felt. That kind of security changes the way you walk through life. Next, I took a portion, around $3,000, and moved it into investments. I opened a Roth IRA and started investing monthly into index funds. Nothing fancy, just consistent, long-term. Investing to build wealth for my future. The earlier you start, the more your money works for you. I also set aside a little for future goals, like travel and business. I didn't blow the money, but I gave myself permission to use a small chunk as a reward and a step forward. I used some to start a small online shop I'd been dreaming about. That felt amazing, turning my savings into seed money for something bigger. But more than any of that, what changed the most was my mindset. Before this, saving money always felt out of reach. I told myself I wasn't good with money, that I didn't make enough to save, that I'd always be behind. But hitting that 10K flipped a switch. I realized I could be disciplined. I could be intentional. I wasn't bad with money. I just didn't have a system or the right habits before. Saving that much money gave me confidence. It taught me patience, grit, and the power of small actions stacking up over time. It showed me I don't have to wait for some perfect moment to take control of my finances. I can start right now with what I have. And that's exactly what I plan to keep doing. So what's next? My long-term goals have expanded. I'm working toward financial independence. I want to invest consistently, eventually buy property, and create multiple income streams. The 10K wasn't just about having a number in the bank. It was about building a foundation. And now that it's there, I can build higher than I ever thought possible. If you're watching this thinking, that's great for you, but I could never do that. Trust me, I was you. I was paycheck to paycheck. I was skeptical. I was overwhelmed. But I took one step, then another, and the momentum built. You don't have to save 10K overnight. You just have to start. That first $100, that first no-spend weekend, that first side hustle gig, it all adds up. And one day, you'll look back and realize that you didn't just change your bank account. You changed your entire mindset. All right. So let's wrap this up. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you. Seriously. Whether you're just starting your saving journey or you've tried and stumbled before, I hope this video gave you the real, raw, and practical steps to show you that yes, you absolutely can save big money on a small income. Let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways. It all starts with mindset. Shifting from a spender to a saver, getting clear on your why, and committing to delayed gratification. Then comes the plan, breaking your big savings goal into smaller, manageable chunks, and tracking every step of the way. Your budget is your foundation. Know your buy, income, know your expenses, and be brutally honest with where your money goes. Cut expenses aggressively, but smartly, without depriving yourself. Focus on cutting waste, not joy. Increase your income, side hustles, skills, selling stuff, asking for more. Every extra dollar matters. Use smart saving techniques. Automate, pay yourself first, use high-yield savings accounts, and gamify the process. Track your progress regularly. Celebrate small wins and stay motivated with visuals or milestones. When setbacks happen, and they will, don't give up. Learn, adapt, keep going. And finally, once you hit your goal, think long-term. Use that money to build freedom, not just comfort. Listen, if I can do this, while making less than insert income, you can too. I didn't have a secret, formula, or perfect situation. I just made a decision, built a system, and stuck to it. And if you're even thinking about doing the same, that's already a powerful first step. If this video helped or inspired you in any way, give it a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. It really supports the channel and helps this message reach more people who need it. And I would love to hear from you. If you're currently saving, let me know what your goal is. If you've hit a big milestone, share your story. Or drop your favorite saving hack in the comments. Let's build a community where we lift each other up. Also, I put together a free budget template and savings checklist that you can download right now. Link is in the description. Totally free, no sign up. Just a tool to help you get started today. Thanks again for watching. Keep saving, keep growing, and remember, every dollar you save is a vote for the future you want to build. I'll see you in the next one.